This podcast is a member of the Place to Be Nation family. Visit us at placetobenation.com, the only place to be in your pop culture world.
Place to Be Nation Pop Experience. Welcome to a special breaking news edition of Pop Goes to the Couch. I am Andy Atherton here with 3/4 of the regular crew. Sean Kidd is on assignment trying to find out what the heck is going on with all these titles and what else are we going to get. And we're expecting a full report from him as soon as possible. But in the meantime, the rest of the crew is here to talk about the latest announcements from James Gunn, the new co-CEO of, was it DCU, right? The DC or whatever, however. I don't know. Things are changing in the industry, mergers, acquisitions, consolidations. I don't know what's happening. We just know James Gunn and Peter Safran are going to be the, I guess, for lack of a better term, the Kevin Feige's of DC going forward. And they made some announcements. And they talked about some of the shows that are movies that are already being released this year. And let's talk about it. Let's give our thoughts on it. So let's get them in. Let's get them introduced. And let's get this show on the road. First up is Scott Shifflett. Scott, how are you?
Andy, I'm glad to be back. I know we're missing Sean tonight, but it's always nice to get the crew back together.
Oh, yeah. Always look for an opportunity for us to do something because it is so much fun. And I enjoy it so much, and I always learn something new. And the person I learned the most from is Tim Capel. Tim, how are you?
I'm doing reasonably well, I guess I can say. I'm glad you're very learned on my account, Andy. Yeah. But I can't make any promises tonight due to, I guess, substance-related issues. I am suffering from a little bit of CTE right now, so I might be a bit slow on the uptake. I'm hoping it's temporary. But we shall see, and we'll get through this together.
Yes, we're all here for each other. So let's start off. The announcement came right on January 31st. He promised an announcement before the end of the year. Let's just talk about the thoughts when James Gunn and Peter Safran, who I don't, I'm familiar with the name, not familiar that much with who he is or what he's about. But we all know James Gunn. We all love James Gunn. He's the guy, behind Guardians of the Galaxy, The Suicide Squad, and Peacemaker, amongst other things. And there's a lot of other great James Gunn things in the past. But James Gunn really, in terms of superhero properties, comics properties, has really become the favorite son, so to speak. So, Tim, what were your thoughts when it was first announced that James Gunn and Peter Safran were going to be the co-CEOs of DC, I guess?
A little bit surprised, a little bit of a bold move on their part. I think people have been calling for someone to operate, at least in the public eye, in some capacity, as like a DCU version of Kevin Feige. And there was sort of some conflict and tension in the past as to whether that was perhaps meant to be Zack Snyder or the Nolans, or that other guy whose name escapes me, who was just
Walter Hamada.
There it is.
Jeff Johns.
See, now I'm learning things. Thank you, Schiff. There's all these different names that would kind of come to the fore, and none of them really seem to gain any traction. I mean, that's sort of Warner Brothers for you in a nutshell. So the decision to finally, I guess, settle on, all right, we're going to hammer down some names. We're going to hammer down some dates, right? We're getting this 10-year plan is what we're being told that Gunn and Peter Safran have put into place, or are still, I guess, probably working out. Gunn has done some great work for DC in the past creatively. I mean, look at that Suicide Squad sequel in comparison to the original. Certainly, we have sung the praises of Peacemaker on this podcast, but he doesn't necessarily strike you as the guy you give the keys to the city to, right? Like he's great as a creator, certainly, like in that capacity, or maybe as like a long-term consultant, that would make a lot of sense. But creatively, not so much from the C-suite. So that's what surprises me a bit about this, is that they would go with a James Gunn whose sensibilities aren't always in line with what you would expect from like mainstream properties. Suicide Squad and Peacemaker, those are one thing. Guardians of the Galaxy, sure, yeah, bring those on all day long. But what does a James Gunn Superman look like? What does a James Gunn Batman look like? And these are, for better or worse, DC's bread and butter. We're never going to get away from seeing Superman and Batman in film. So if Gunn is going to be overseeing that, what's that going to look like? And is he really the best choice? I mean, I don't think I can offer any alternatives or complaints. It's certainly he's done no wrong in my eyes for DC since his arrival. And in fact, based on this news we're going to get into, maybe based on the tone, based on the content of these projects, he is the right choice after all. So I said my piece, long rambling piece, but that's about how I feel about it.
All right, Scott, what were your feelings on the announcement?
All right, it's well known, from doing the comics pods. I'm the DC fanboy of the four of us. Tim and Sean are more the Marvel guys. So I was really excited, just because Gunn, like as Tim was saying, has a good track. I'll say a great track record because we were talking beforehand, Andy, how like he made Rocket Raccoon and Groot like household names. Like they should not be bigger than, say, Wonder Woman. And in the normal person's eyes, I feel that they are, because DC, relating this to wrestling, right now it feels like Marvel, this is 1991 wrestling. Marvel is WWF. It's still on the high, but we're starting to see some cracks. DC feels like WCW in 1991, where it's like, oh, what are we doing here? It's definitely second fiddle to Marvel. And I'm just going to read you guys through. This was the original slate. I know we're about to get into it, but this was the original slate that they came out with in the early 2010s. 20-aughts. I don't know what the hell these things are called. Yeah. But I could have a whole other podcast on how I think Zack Snyder and Hamada and Joss Whedon destroyed. Zack Snyder specifically didn't know what Superman was, and just try to make him like something he isn't. Like he's supposed to be like the Boy Scout, and anyway, Snyder fucked that up. Okay, and also DC, the head at DC, I'm not blaming this on Snyder. I want to say this is Hamada, and fact check me because I might be wrong. They wanted to just speed through and have Justice League without the ground building that Marvel did with the Iron Man.
Yeah, exactly.
With the Avengers. So this was the original slate. 2013 Man of Steel, 2016 Batman vs Superman: Dawn of Justice, and that shitty Suicide Squad movie, which is when like having Cara Delevingne be a scientist was like having Denise Richards be a fucking scientist in James Bond. Okay, just so bad.
That movie won an Academy Award.
It did.
Which one? Suicide Squad?
Suicide Squad won
for costuming or something.
Is it like costume or makeup?
As JAD says, costume D's nuts. And it's bad because everyone says all the time, oh, Scott, you're such a mark, you like everything. This shit royally pisses me off. Okay, 2017, Wonder Woman. The first one was great. The less said about the second's even better, especially that fucking fake baby scene in the middle of the desert.
It's amazing.
No movies came out during COVID 2020, but I was like, I want my money back because I was watching it.
Well, hang on. You stepped right over Joss Whedon Justice League.
Yeah, sorry. I jumped ahead because 2017 Wonder Woman, 2017 also Justice League Part 1.
I cannot believe Justice League came out as early as 2017. Can you believe that? That sounds fake, right? That just sounds wrong.
The Justice League, as you guys might remember, Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Cyborg, and Aquaman. We're missing and the Flash. We're missing some people that are needed there, but that's just me. All right. Justice League, which was originally supposed to be Part 1, but they just axed the Part 1 off. 2018, The Flash, which it's now 2023, and we're finally potentially getting the Flash movie.
They first announced that like in 2010, right?
Yeah,
with fucking Ezra Miller attached. He was like a completely different person at the time.
Yeah, he wasn't kidnapping fucking tweens and shit and making a covenant and breaking into fucking people's houses. Like I said, main roster angry. And Aquaman, which, not gonna lie, was a pretty fun movie. And, maybe made everyone, made the women get their pussies wet for Jason Momoa. So,
the mom specifically.
Yeah, an untitled DC film, which God only knows what the fuck that would have been. It's probably something terrible. And then 2019, we had Sean Kidd's favorite, Shazam, which I enjoyed. And then Justice League Part 2, which, spoiler alert, was canceled because, as we saw in Zack Snyder's 4-hour epic, which I put epics in quotes, that was going to lead to basically the Injustice storyline with Superman. As I said, he doesn't fucking know Superman becoming bad. And another DC untitled film. And then we have 2020, which we were going to have a Cyborg movie, which, the Cyborg guy, he was all right. But the way he acts...
It seems a little, kind of too little too late at that point, but all right, yeah.
Yeah, but this was like their, Gen 1 or whatever. Knowing DC at the time, they would have stole the Phase 1 exactly from fucking Marvel, because they're already on their nuts. So, they were going to have Cyborg, which the Cyborg actor's name, I think I've only seen him in True Detective Season 3, but he's the one that brought, he basically Me Too Joss Whedon, which it sounds like for good reason, because Joss is supposed to be a woman's rights piece of shit. But
that's when all that really picked up steam against Whedon.
And then here's what I was really hyped for, was the Green Lantern Corps movie. As we may remember, Green Lantern came out in 2010, 2011. Your boy liked it because I'm a Green Lantern mark, but it was pretty fucking bad. I admit, pretty fucking bad. So when James Gunn was announced to do it, I was like, fuck it. I mean, if it doesn't work, just fucking kill it and just do animated movies. So I know that's long-winded, but that's my thoughts.
Well, I mean, at least we got Black Adam out of that at the end of the day.
Black Adam kind of sucked too. I'm not gonna lie, it was mid.
Yeah,
if you put it in the list of The Rock was working on this for 10 years, maybe he should have tried another 10 years because
it was.
It had its issues. I mean, I admit, I had fun while I was watching it, but then it was one of those, I think back, I'm like, oh, what happened there? What were they trying to do there? And get that kid out of here.
You had a dumb fucking kid who, is he supposed to be 8 or supposed to be 16 or have a fucking TBI? Because then, goddamn, he's acting like they put he's part of the Justice Society. They put a fucking cape on him, which if they would put a cape on me at 16, I'd be like, get this shit the fuck off of me. But at 8, that's cool. But then you have that. It would have worked better if it was the Justice Society of America movie where they're hunting Black Adam. That would have worked better. Because the best parts of that movie was Aldous Hodge as Hawkman and Pierce Brosnan, 007, right there as fucking Dr. Fate. Those were the best parts of it. Yeah.
I mean, I was confused, because I have not watched any of the the Arrowverse stuff, and I know Hawkman might have been in some of that, right? I think he was on Smallville a little bit. I didn't know Hawkman was an alien. I didn't know that, but in here he's not an alien. I was very confused on it. But for me, I love the stuff James Gunn's done. Guardians, Suicide Squad, Peacemaker. My fear is that he goes let's see him work with real mainstream characters, like the Batman, Superman. Let's see how he does there. Mm-hmm. And I fear, I do still really like Taika Waititi because I loved Our Flag Means Death. I haven't watched What We Do in the Shadows, but I heard really good things about it. I love Ragnarok, Love and Thunder. After I went back and watched it the second time on my stream lounge, I was kind of like, "Oh, sir, yeah, I don't like this nearly as much." So I'm afraid we're gonna get. That's my fear at times. I don't think it's gonna happen, but where it's too much of that personality.
I disagree because as we've seen in Guardians 2 specifically, Gunn knows how to do the tightrope of silly and heartfelt, as one of the best lines comes from Michael Rooker's character, whose name is blanking me right now, Yondu's character, when he goes, he might have been he might have been your father, but I'm your daddy as he's dying.
Mhm.
So like, I said that right now, I got goosebumps. So
Yeah.
like,
Yondu's death, one of the most emotional scenes we've had in the whole MCU.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
But-
it's allowed to actually breathe. Like
Yeah.
every time they do that sort of, and I'm not trying to get into a whole. I hate that fourth Thor movie so much. But like every time they try to do something kind of serious or even sentimental, it's just like a means to another dick joke. Basically, it's just there because it. I don't know. It feels like it's supposed to be, but it's just like, all right, get this the hell out of here. We've got more dick jokes to make, right? Like, it's just it's bad.
And I was, so I was really down on DC. And you all know from talking to me and doing the comics pod and all this other stuff. Like, I didn't grow up reading comics, but I watched a lot of Saturday morning cartoons. So I watched the Super Friends. So I love that. It's goofy to some of you guys, but that's just my Super Friends.
I get it. It's a generational thing.
I love.
I'm aware of the show. It was never a favorite.
It's not your thing. So,
right.
But for me, it was like putting Zack Snyder in charge. The guy is too damn dark with his visions and everything like that. Like Man of Steel, like made me mad. Like he's like, first of all, they tried to make him into like Wolverine almost at times. Some really bad character choices, the whole in there, and a Christ figure and things like that. And then I was still annoyed about Superman Returns, which I friggin' hate that movie so much. I just don't like that movie at all. And then, we get some of the other things. Like I did enjoy Aquaman. Shazam is, turn your brain off and you'll have a good time with it. I'm actually kind of looking forward to the next one.
Sean Kidd's favorite movie.
Yeah, I know. Green Lantern sucked. The Green Lantern roller coaster that we have near here in New Jersey is terrible now. It's too rickety. So yeah, I'm a little down on Green Lantern, but I know there's so much possibility in there.
His movie sucked, and so does his roller coaster.
Yeah, the roller coaster used to be good, and they dismantled one of my all-time favorite roller coasters to put that thing up too. The Great American Screen Machine, R.I.P. Anyway, but in Justice League, it was like they were playing. It was too much of a knee-jerk reaction. It was like Marvel spent all this time introducing these characters and building. It was kind of like, let's, introduce our 2 big or 3 big characters, and then we're going to give you a Justice League, and then we're going to deconstruct it from there. And that just doesn't work these days. And, I did watch the Snyder Cut over however many days. It was the pandemic. What else were we doing, right? And I thought it was a better than the theatrical, but wasn't a very high bar to jump over.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Sorry to interrupt, but at the same time, I sort of like, as much as that's like not a good Justice League movie, I still think that is to this day the most interesting thing that the DCU has put out in a weird way, like not necessarily in a positive sense, but it just shows you like what they could have had if they had at least stuck to I'm not saying it's the right vision necessarily, but let's say Zack Snyder wants to do this very dark version of the DCU that is maybe gonna villainize Superman. Like maybe this is a deliberate choice, and the things that people are calling out as criticisms of how he portrays the character.
Fuck Zack Snyder.
Meant to be. I'm just saying, like, if that's what he's going for, I could see that. I would probably be more interested in watching something like that if it led to like a cohesive payoff, as opposed to all these disparate little unconnected. Like, what does Shazam have to do with any of this? What is Joker and the Matt Reeves Batman, like, are these part of the world or not? No, guess. All right, moving on. Oh, and here's Suicide Squad. It's just, none of it even looks like it's even made by the same studio, right? And to some extent, I know that's a criticism. That's been a criticism of the MCU, is that everything kind of looks the same. There's that house style. Well, that also has its advantages, right? And it's proven extremely valuable as well from a branding standpoint, and they just could not get that together. But I would have, at the end of the day, been interested in seeing what's the fulfillment of this vision, as much as I may disagree with it.
Fuck his vision. Because you know why, Zack Snyder? I'm sorry, Tim. Zack Snyder, you put more thought into Superman when you explained him that at 3 minutes than Snyder did. Want to know why? Batman versus Superman. They're fighting. You know what stops them from fighting? Martha. And he's like, yo, doll, your mom's named Martha too? Let's fucking team up. Get the fuck out of here with that. I laughed in the theater when that happened.
It's bad, but
I thought it was it was like I had like an out of fucking body experience when I got like so main roster angry with them being like, you know, okay, they can fight. They fought in what The Dark Knight Returns. They fought in that
well, that's sort
comic.
of the bigger problem I think with that movie is it takes two like legendary classic storylines and sort of mashes them together in such a way that you'll never now, I won't say never, but it will be a long time before you get a standalone like the Dark Knight Returns movie or a Death of Superman movie or a series of movies, right? Because they're in their minds they're like, well, we already did that.
They shot their wad in movie 2.
You dumbasses, yeah.
This would be like Tony fucking dying in Captain America for no goddamn reason.
Right.
We built up 20 movies for that.
I was like, Gotham City and Metropolis are a stone's throw away from each other. That even bothered me. So I was like, wait, what is happening here?
Yeah, that's another weird, like, it was not real clear. Like, their whole world was so, it felt, I mean, at least the MCU, I guess, has the advantage of taking place in quote unquote our world. So, you know, their cities are our cities. But when you're in a truly fictional in-universe made-up setting where you've got places like Gotham City and Metropolis that don't exist, you've really got to put some effort into the world building, like by necessity, right? Just to give this stuff a sense of scale and scope and to let it breathe. Like, that's an extension of the characters, and to neglect those details, I don't know, it just seems like a failure in terms of movie making 101. I mean, like, or storytelling 101. But that's been the issue with WB. All these, they're such poor stewards of this IP and not just DC. I mean, all of the IP under their purview. They're such idiots. They're just complete fucking morons. And I can't believe these clowns are in charge of some of the most lucrative not just from a pure money standpoint, but think in terms of like people's nostalgia and emotions and memories and attachment and they're just like, I don't know, Batman versus Superman.
and there's such like a rich, like, basically like a trove of stories that you could pick from, and you know, it was Plus,
here's
also,
two. Let's do them in one movie.
Yeah, there was no real structure, no long-term storytelling in the correct way. You know, there was a Wonder Twins project that was in development, that Batgirl movie that was done. And,
which
it's a tax write-off now.
Everyone was pissed off about that Batgirl movie. That looked like a fucking CW movie that was made. Like, it looked like shit. I'm glad. And, you know, at first Gunn was quiet about it, but he talked about it this past week where he was like, yeah, this was really bad. And even Peter Safran, whatever the fuck his name is, said like, oh yeah, it would have set us back. So like, I'm glad like it didn't come out. Like, you know, that's why I have hope for this. There's an actual plan. They're building for something. This is chapter 1 in a book that we have coming up. And that chapter is called Gods and Monsters, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
sorry.
Let's talk about with what we know about and what's coming out this year. So thank God Sean's not here, but we got Shazam, Fury of the Gods, which, come on, Lucy Liu and Helen Mirren are the bad guys in this. For me, it's going to be a chance to shut my brain off, have some laughs. Hopefully it's not too dumb, right? And then we got Blue Beetle, which I don't really know anything about the character outside of maybe playing as him a little bit in the Injustice video game, played by Miguel from Cobra Kai. We got Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, which is supposed to be interconnecting into what's coming, and then The Flash, which is going to be the big reset. I mean, we're going to get people from everywhere, apparently. Michael Keaton's in there as Batman. So What are your thoughts on anything? And like you can keep it, to bullet points about like Shazam, The Flash, Blue Beetle, Aquaman. Let's start with Shazam. Any thoughts on Shazam: Fury of the Gods, Tim?
I'll just preface, I guess, all of this by saying all of these films that we think we're reasonably sure are happening. I'm a little bit hesitant to say that Flash movie is ever going to come out. Still, but
It'll
these
come
all
out
just
when
feels
the,
like
Scott Pilgrim pod comes out.
Yes, exactly. That's when that'll see the light of day. That's what should be done with that. But all of these films, this entire slate that you named, just feels like the dregs of the last administration that were sweeping into the dustbin. Like it's, they'd probably like to take them on as tax write-offs. Somebody did that math, right? Somebody absolutely did that math, sat down with their spreadsheet and went, not by much, but it looks like it's better for us to actually release them. So,
because they'll probably make money internationally. That's the thing too.
Yes, they'll make money. There's nothing that is going to scare China off in these movies, I don't think. I mean, what's Shazam 2 going to really do? Shazam 2, if you like the first one, it seems like you'll like the second one. Blue Beetle, I guess they're going with the second generation.
They're going with Jaime Reyes.
Jaime Reyes, yes, with Miguel from Cobra Kai. I'm not going to try to say that actor's name right now in this condition I'm in. Again, it's the type of thing that it'll. I can already tell it's going to draw comparisons to like Tom Holland's Spider-Man. It's going to be like, oh, it's DCU doing a woke version of the MCU Spider-Man. That's what people are going to say, because they're going to think they just made up this character who's existed for over 10 years now, probably more like 15, close to 20. So yeah, and it'll probably be a decent movie that there will be no follow-up to, and you'll never see the character again, and that'll be the end of that. So hopefully people don't get their hopes up too high, especially if they really like the film. That's the thing. Like, if you like these movies and you come out of them thinking, wow, that was actually really great, I want to see more of that, you already know you're not getting more of that. Because, again, these are just the dregs. These are the things that have already been in production forever. We talked about how long Flash has been, in the ether, I guess. Is it now finally going to happen? It's like they've got a movie, and it's like, oh shit, we hate our lead, and so it looks really bad for us to actually release this thing now. I mean, it just feels so snake bitten, right? Mm-hmm. So I don't know. Maybe they'll digitally replace all of Ezra Miller's scenes with somebody else.
Well, did they do that with Amber Heard in Aquaman: The Lost Kingdom?
No, she's in it.
Do that,
she's still in it? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, please.
I think her role is reduced.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's that. It's just there's nothing worth getting excited about. Yeah, and that's not to be like, well, look at this. Already they're fucking up, and it's like, no, it's just you got to get through the stuff that. It's not really under the control of James Gunn or Peter Safran with this this lineup that just has to they've got to get it out of the way and then get to their stuff. I think that's how we have to look at this. Scott, what do you say?
All right, so we have Shazam, which, like I said, was Sean Kidd's favorite movie of 2017 when it came out, and But like Tim said, I really just don't give a shit. Like, I'm just laying it out there. Like, Shazam, Zach Levi's probably not coming back. James Gunn said that the people that have played these characters, there might be a chance to come back. But of course you would say that because you don't want to ruin the movie. So,
right, yeah.
So we have that, which, haven't been that sold on the trailer, to be honest. Like Helen Mirren and Lucy Liu, who looks like she's the same age as Helen Mirren,
sir,
is right there. I'm gonna skip over. I really am. I'm gonna skip over the Flash movie because I'm gonna button that up. Blue Beetle, I'm actually excited for because Blue Beetle brings someone we're going to talk about later, Booster Gold, because they're best friends in this. So I'm cool with the Blue Beetle. Hopefully that sticks around. That's a nice B character that maybe they want to elevate to A tier because, as you guys know, Iron Man wasn't always A tier. They used Iron Man because that's the rights they had at the time. And now look at him. So we have that. I'm not saying Iron Man is Blue Beetle. Don't fucking misconstrue that. I'm just saying. And then we have Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. Hot take. I say we bag it. Just let Momoa be Lobo.
Just bag it.
Like,
wow.
We know because those two movies, quote unquote, don't matter because in June this year, which this movie, the Flash movie, Gunn has said it's one of the best superhero movies he's ever said, right? And it
can't possibly be true, can it?
I'm holding out hope because I really like what they're picking up, which is the Flashpoint. And they were already planning on doing this, and this was going to rewrite their DC history and start it over fresh. So what I think they should do is swap out, if they want to release Aquaman, throw Aquaman in the summer, release Flash at Christmas, and then you can be like, yeah, you watch that stuff this year. Thanks for watching, but it doesn't matter anymore. So that's what they should do. And then if you want to do it, and like, those people can come back because let's be real, this is DC, and DC, if you're a comic book fan, loves their crisis events. One of the best crises ever, Crisis on Infinite Earths. So there you go. You can have all those people come back, which it sounds like from the stuff I've read, and so I didn't want to read it. That's what they were setting up for anyway, but that's how they were going to get rid of Batfleck and Keaton's Batman. So just swap out those two dates, have a Flash reset everything, and then you go into 2024, and then you can start telling everyone who's going to be starring in these movies. And if you have to do swap out someone, you could do reshoots because Sasha Calle was supposed to be Supergirl. I don't know who Sasha Calle is. She could be a great actress for all I know. But if you're going to have a new Supergirl movie and you want this person to lead, you should know that you're going with her. That's all I'm saying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I'm curious to see how this all plays out, and just I'm just gonna enjoy the little ride because how much I love going to the movies. Unlike you, I got a AMC, so it's like, yeah, what else are we gonna do, right? So before we get into Gods and Monsters, one thing I found.
Can I just say,
go ahead.
I just have to. It just came to me, I guess. As far as this whole Flashpoint thing, I mean, where does this version of the DCU get off having the audacity to think that they've earned both the ability creatively and I guess right to do a Flashpoint adaptation with what? I mean, we talked about the lack of building blocks that have been here since the inception of they start with Superman, great, and then 2 movies later we're already doing Justice League, and it's like, Hal, you seem like you skipped a few steps there. And I understand, okay, cool, we can capitalize on all this multiverse bullshit that has really grabbed the zeitgeist right now, and we can I guess have multiple Batmans like we did the multiple Spider-Mans, but at the end of the day, what else does this have to offer? I mean, maybe I'm just so unimpressed with everything right now, but that is enough for people, and that's going to be satisfying, but it just doesn't sound, it sounds very threadbare to me, like, oh my god, we're going to be creating and destroying worlds, and it's going to be like a crisis level event in film, and
Well, I think it was going to lead to Crisis.
But again, a crisis of what?
A crisis of fucking studio heads. That's what they fucking had.
Yeah, exactly. That's the only crisis I've seen here. We don't exactly have infinite Earths or, it's just not, again, it's that lack of world building that has gone into all of this, where they're just they haven't put in the work. They have not, I hate to use this expression, but they have not earned it, right? They have not earned this this moment.
And it's amazing that DC has lucked into their dumbasses, doing this, postponing this movie 5 years, that they've lucked into like, oh shit, we can press the fucking reset button. Like when you lose in Sega Genesis and you're like, no, it didn't. Reset.
It's about the size of it.
Yeah. All right. So one thing that, Peter Gunn did make sure to Peter Gunn, James Gunn said
that kind of works. That kind of works. Just smash it up.
Yeah. In his announcement was that DC Comics Elseworld strategy is being incorporated into the DCU. No more E, just the DCU. And they'll take place on a different timeline. So they won't be part of the main canon. So that's the case for the Matt Reeves Batverse, which will include the Batman sequel as well as the Penguin show that's coming, starring Colin Farrell, as well as Todd Phillips' Joker and its sequel, as well as the even animated Teen Titans Go, which my son used to watch, and it's a really funny show, actually. So that's I kind of like that. They're acknowledging these exist, but it's not part of.
I wish they write off fucking Joker.
I enjoyed the movie, but it's not a movie I am in a hurry to ever rewatch, kind of thing. Like I enjoyed it in the moment, but the moment's passed. So, and I'll see the sequel if it's going to be like some kind of musical with Lady Gaga.
I'd rather chop my nuts off than see that fucking sequel.
Oh, you're going to go see it because you got the AMC, so you got to see it.
Be seeing something else. I couldn't stand that first movie, and everyone was like, "It's so great." There's a bunch of fucking incels that couldn't get pussy if they fucking got dropped off at a woman island called Themyscira. So they got nothing to worry about.
Boy, we got an angry shift tonight. Tim, any thoughts to share on Elseworlds?
Yeah, you know what? I think that's really smart branding on Peter Gunn's part. I'm going to use that.
I know.
Because it just makes clear to people, because there's been these questions probably since even before that Matt Reeves Batman movie came. I mean, even going back to Joker, people are like, okay, so what's this? Is this going to tie into Justice League, or are we going to see this character again in like Suicide Squad or something, or like, is this part of your world? And they just kind of shrugged their shoulders, right? We never got any straight answers, which I think is pretty cheap. And I think it's because they didn't fucking know any better than the people asking the question. So I like that they're very decisive on this point, and it's Elseworlds is a
they use it now in comics.
Yeah, that is a very in-universe term from the comics that means something to comics readers. Like immediately, you know what they're talking about when they say this is an Elseworld story. A comic reader does. So it's just a matter of like training the general public who, are not comics readers, have not encountered this terminology before. That's not a difficult thing to do, just to say, hey, this is outside of the sort of prime continuity that we're going to be exploring. This is off to the side. This is how we're going to convey that to you. Very elegantly, very simply. I think it's pretty memorable. It's going to stick in the mind. When you hear Elseworlds, you'll think, oh, okay, well, and I hope it doesn't give the impression to people that, well, this film doesn't matter, because what fucking film matters in the first place, right? If it sounds like it's an interesting enough project, that's what should sell you on it, not necessarily the continuity behind it. So if you like that Matt Reeves Batman, here's more of that type of thing, right? Which is tonally going to be very different from, all the phases, I guess, for lack of a better word, of the Peter Gunn DCU
or James Safran.
Well, I didn't get a chance in my rants. I was shitting on the Joker with the Batman. I'm glad, because they even said like they're still going to go forward with the Penguin TV show. Now that's a show that I'll believe it happens when I see it. Type deal.
I kind of agree with you there.
And we did get a release date for the second Matt Reeves Batman, October 3rd, 2025, which I'm fine with, because we can get to this we'll get to this I'll expand more on this. We're gonna see two different types of Batman. The first Batman we see now is like, kind of emo and gothy, which he's like year one Batman, as we saw in the Batman. This new Batman we're gonna get, it's gonna be reluctant father, and that's gonna be good. And we're actually gonna see more of the Bat family. We're obviously not gonna see any of the Bat family in this. I have a feeling this what's his name? The actor Robert Pattinson.
Yeah.
He's going to be more sequestered off like the Keaton Batman and the Christian Bale Batman, which is fine. You can have different Batmans. I don't know how this Batman, like the other Batmans, would have fit in this universe they're trying to create. So I'm okay with that.
Agreed. He's a very good Batman for a universe where like Batman is the only superhero, right?
Yeah.
And that's the only. And Batman and his world, and Gotham City and his robes are like the only real supernatural elements to that world. I kind of like that take on, and I hope that is going to continue to be the take on that character. And it's a radically different interpretation from, as you said, the more Grant Morrison Batman as dad to the newest Robin, who, we'll get to that. These are radically different points in that character's life and radically different versions of the character. So that's how you can kind of get away with having two Batmans on screen simultaneously.
Yes.
And one thing too that Gunn said was that this is going to be even different from the MCU in terms of like, not only is it going to be the movies and the TV shows are going to be intertwined, but the animation, and they're going to try to have the same actors voicing the characters when they're in animated form and when they're in live action, as well as the video games even being part of the general overall story. Because, I have had them downloaded on my PlayStation for a while, but I haven't gotten to play the Arkham games. But there's this, the Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League game coming out that looks so good in the trailers that is supposedly a kind of like almost like a sequel to it. So it's what I find it's going to be very, very interesting on how they do all this, because I know with Star Wars, with and I've talked about this before, like Jedi Fallen Order, there is talk of that is canon, and there's talk of introducing Cal Kestis, whatever his name is, into the whole Star Wars thing. Like, could he be?
Well, and there's precedent for that kind of thing.
Yeah. So here's the thing that I really enjoyed about this announcement was that they're getting in front of everything. They're explaining everything in the beginning. Like, this is, we have these things over here. We're going to release them. Don't worry. Those of you who are looking forward to this, then we're going to reset. But this is what we're going to do. Okay. These movies are great, but they're not going to be part of this one story. They're like, to quote Abed on Community, these are bottle episodes. Those are episodes. Like, you ever watch a sitcom and it's like you're doing like an overall story, but then there's one that has nothing to do with anything except for what it's telling in those 22 minutes. That's what those are. Those are contained in their own little, hermetically sealed containers off to the side. And they're great. And you go see them, go watch them, enjoy them for what they are. And they're going to have their own little worlds. They're going to build into sequels and all that. But this is the main, like, overall thing. Like, all these various shows and movies and everything are all going to be all connected together. And that's the difference. And the fact that it's getting out there and they're getting ahead of it and not confusing the shit out of people who don't know what this is going in. Like, wait, we're going to see another Batman movie? Didn't we just see a Batman movie? Don't these things come out like 2 or 3 years apart? They're getting rid of that kind of confusion out there. So hopefully they'll keep that messaging up as it goes. Like, I don't want it to be like every time, all right, guys, this is an Elseworld movie. No, this is a main, don't hit us over the head with it, but just keep those little subtle reminders in there, Okay, so what is part of this new DC? Well, they've announced, like Scott said, Gods and Monsters, which is chapter 1 of this big ass book we're going to get, a 10-year plan. And they've, there's more to this chapter that they're going to announce, but this is what they're starting us off with. And this was quite a bit. And I didn't recognize a good portion of it, which is part of the reason why I wanted to get the gang together to kind of like talk about this and kind of, like I said, educate me on this. Cause we're going to do our next episode of Traders soon. And I got a lot of educating I need on that, because that was some story. Anyway, when you
The
got
world needs an education on it.
Yeah, damn you, Sean. Anyway, so the first, so according to the sequel to Batman is coming out October 3rd, 2025. But on July 11th, 2025, the first entry into the Gods and Monsters, the first theatrical release, will be Superman Legacy, which is being written by James Gunn, no director yet, and they're saying it's not another Superman origin story, even though the movie will deal with the hero's double legacy as a Kryptonian and Earth's protector. So, Tim, being the resident Superman mark, for lack of a better term, what were your thoughts when you heard Superman Legacy?
I'll sign up for that. I'll volunteer for that position.
Okay.
At first, sort of my knee-jerk thought was James Gunn, Superman. Ooh, it's a little bit like maybe two great tastes that aren't going to taste great together, as I sort of alluded to earlier. So a little bit of hesitation on my part, little
trepidation.
Trepidation, that's a better word. Thank you, sir. And then I got to thinking about it, and I was like, well, what do we think of James Gunn's Superman? What might that look like? And not to jump ahead, really, but we see he's going to be borrowing, Gunn is going to be sort of drawing from that Grant Morrison time period of Batman with Damian as Robin and whatnot. And sort of seems to me that once you expose a James Gunn to Grant Morrison's writing, he's probably going to go a little bit nuts and want to read like everything that guy has ever done, and his take on every on Morrison's take on every superhero, like Gunn is going to be sort of in line with. I think that's going to line up with his vision pretty closely, and I think of, Morrison did some pretty great work on Superman. So if I had to guess what this movie might look like, I'm sort of thinking that New 52 run of Action Comics, where you get a pretty non-traditional Superman because it's still like kind of early in his career. So he's wearing like the cape and the sort of the upper torso looks sort of like your traditional Superman, but below the waist he's just in jeans and like some Dockers. It's just like what's going on here with Superman? It was just more of a I don't know how to describe it. It's almost like a golden age throwback to like the very earliest Superman stories where he was envisioned as like this this kind of immigrant power fantasy by his creators. So this I guess if that's what they do, this will be called the woke version of Superman, and everyone will review bomb it and try to destroy its box office and whatnot.
Because they're pussies.
Yeah, they suck. And but I don't know. I feel like that might be the direction that Gunn wants to take Superman. I also, and thinking back to like the 1978 classic Superman the Motion Picture, everybody kind of gets in their feelings when they talk about that movie. I get it. It's kind of like baseball and your dad. But at the same time, when you really watch that movie and rewatch that movie back, there's a lot of like kind of black humor and sort of goofy shit in that movie and its sequel. Both, Superman's 1 and 2, before you get into just the slapstick nonsense of later in the series, where it's just like, I could see James Gunn making a movie like that, about a superhero, but with just more of a modern day sensibility. Like, I could see those weird little touches, and I'm thinking things like when he rescues the cat out of the tree for the little girl. It's off screen. You only hear the audio. She runs inside and says, "A man who could fly rescued Fluffy from a tree," or whatever. The mother says, "What have I told you about lying?" And you hear the smack. It's like, and then it's cut away, right? And you're like, what was that? That's so wrong. And there's just tons of moments like that throughout both of those movies, and that seems like a thing that James Gunn likes to do, right? Where he just sort of fucks with you a little bit, but doesn't lose the heart of the story and the character along the way. So I kind of talked myself into thinking, yeah, I could kind of go with a James Gunn take on a Superman. Let's keep in mind as well, Gunn is not directly writing and directing all of these projects himself. So he may have like a very limited degree of input creatively into some of these things, unless he has already come out and said, I have written I have the screenwriter credit, and or I'm going to be directing this film. There's going to be several degrees of separation, right? Depending on how involved or not he is in the oversight of some of this stuff. So, all that is to say, cautiously optimistic, I guess, as a big time Superman mark. And if you want my prediction on what his Superman is going to look like, I'm thinking, like I said, New 52 Action Comics.
All right. Scott, any thoughts on Superman Legacy?
I'm not as big as a Superman hater as others that we pod with, but I will be caught. I'm gonna have tempered expectations for this, like Tim, but that's because in my lifetime I've never seen a good Superman movie. The baseball analogy is perfect. I've tried to watch that. It's just too hokey for me. It's like Batman 66. But this needs to. I'm not saying it has to critically wise has to do good out of the gate, do well out of the gate, and has to do pretty well at the box office because we can't get off on a.
Yeah, there's gonna be a lot on the line.
But with saying that, that's why I think Gunn directs. He wants to live and die with it, so he's gonna he's fuck it, I'll do it myself type thing. So and I think it's still too early to figure out who's casting, but we'll got to be hearing that soon because it's February 2023. This comes out 2.5 years. So
apparently, a lot of the casting has already been done. They're just not announcing anything yet. From things I'm reading,
he shot that down.
That would be smart.
He shot that down personally.
Oh, he did. All right.
Okay.
All right. So James Gunn's also working on a script for The Authority, a movie based on a controversial super
Triple H, Stephanie McMahon, Randy Orton.
Yeah.
Mark. Of the Wildstorm label. The Authority is a super team so concerned with saving the planet that they will often cross moral lines to get things done. Believing that the ends justify the means, the heroes of the Authority often act like villains. So it kind of sounds like an inverted Suicide Squad to me.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah. So what do you guys know about The Authority?
Not a damn thing.
I know it had its heyday in the late 90s and early 2000s when very decompressed comics in their writing that were very cinematic in their art were very much the style of the day. And that was a series that really popularized that style. It spawned a lot of imitators. Marvel's The Ultimates, which was the Ultimate Universe version of the Avengers, heavily pulled from The Authority. So in an indirect way, the MCU is kind of, like early MCU is kind of influenced by The Authority, because the thinking at the time was, okay, Marvel with their Ultimate imprint, this is both an opportunity to capture a new audience of comics readers, sort of simplify and streamline, declutter a lot of their characters, and serve as sort of a template for what these characters and concepts would look like in film. And certainly those influences were not as pronounced as maybe they would have been if the MCU had started a few years earlier, but they're still there. So that is all to say The Authority has kind of long legs. It's not a DCU original property. It was acquired through Wildstorm. Yep, Wildstorm was Jim Lee's studio within Image Comics. So when Jim Lee decided he was going to sell Wildstorm to DC, he kind of went along with that package. Jim Lee himself didn't have anything to do with directly didn't have anything to do with the Authority, but the Authority does spring from an earlier Jim Lee concept, which was Stormwatch. Stormwatch, later written by Warren Ellis. And in the Authority days, you get Brian Hitch on art, and that was just a really winning combination. As you said, Andy, these are unconventional superheroes. They kind of get the job done by any means necessary. They're like ultra violent, kind of like The Boys, but this happened before The Boys, so you almost have to think of when The Boys, the comic, came out. That was kind of a response to the Authority and kind of directly satirized the approach to superheroes that the Authority took, where it was like, yeah, we're still kind of pretending these guys are heroes, but we also want to take a more gritty, realistic take on what this would look like if it was indeed the real world. So a lot of their characters are pretty clearly modeled after existing like DC icons. Like they've got their own Superman, they've got their own Batman, sort of got a Hawkman. Like you can find these analogs very easily. But that is the idea, is to take, these boilerplate, iconic sort of characters and just reinterpret them, put a new spin on them, just like Watchmen does, right? With, existing characters, just does their own take on those concepts, those very sort of high-level concepts, and says, let's put them through the ringer. That's what the Authority does. And I don't know, it'd be interesting to see how that works in film. Have they said this is not Elseworlds, right? This is part of their...
No, this is part of it.
So I'm not sure what the Wildstorm, universe of characters, what their relationship is to just the mainstream DC characters these days. I know that through a series of reboots of their universe, I think all of those guys have really gotten folded into just the one main DC universe. It took them a while to get there, but I think they are there at this point. So, like, how do these, shall we say, great value versions of Batman and Superman react or interact with the real thing? I don't know that we're going to see any crossover necessarily, especially right out of the gate, but it does beg the question, why do these characters exist when we've already got the real deal, And maybe that's what that film is going to try to set out to answer, among other things.
All right. So the third film announced was The Brave and the Bold. Wow. So this is going to be a movie focused on the extended Bat family. More specifically, it will put Damian Wayne at the center of the action in a father-son story inspired by Grant Morrison's comic book run. It will also introduce a new star in the role of the Dark Knight. Scott, I could hear you kind of cheering under your breath there, so I guess you have some stuff to say about this.
I'm looking at the Grant Morrison omnibus right now, which introduced that little snot-nosed punk Damian Wayne, which I say in the nicest terms. He's an interesting character. I'm just happy we're getting a different Robin. We're getting this is actually Batman's son. Spoiler alert, his mom is Ra's al Ghul's daughter, Talia. So, and we're getting more of the extended Bat family. Give me fucking Nightwing. Give me Red Robin. Give me... No, it's Red Robin as well. Oh, okay. A Red Hood, Jason Todd. Duke, who I can't think of his name, but I love his design. Duke Hudson's his name. If they want to bring in Lucas Fox, like, who takes over he's the Batman, I'm salivating at this. I know Grant Morrison's not for everyone. He's hit or miss for me. I enjoyed this Batman run. Hated him on the Green Lantern run. This is going to be awesome. And I think that it's not going to go as dark. Watch, I be completely wrong. Come and get me 7 years from now when it comes out. But I think this is going to be fun. And not like shitty 90s Clooney, Val Kilmer, Batman funs. Like, this is going to be this is going to be
James Gunn fun.
Yeah, the James. Oh, that's good, Tim. This is gonna be like how everyone's a family, like in Guardians. This is gonna be their version of it.
Okay, Tim, anything to say?
Corona and family, Batman style. Yeah. It's definitely going to be a different take on Batman than anything we've seen in film, which is good. They kind of need to do that, especially if, again, the Matt Reeves Batman stuff is going to continue existing alongside it. I don't really have a horse in this race, to be honest with you. I've not read a whole lot of that era of Batman, which I guess kind of extends to today. I mean, Damian's still around and everything, so I can't say he's ever been like one of my favorite characters, but I know that that is a very, it's divisive in its ways, but the people who like that Grant Morrison Batman stuff really like it. So there's a lot to work with here. Again, I think it's perfect. It's perfect material for James Gunn to draw from. When you look at all the varied interpretations of Batman and ways he could go with that, this makes a lot more sense than like doing a hard-boiled Dark Knight detective thing. Like not saying James Gunn isn't versatile. He can maybe do anything, right? But this is maybe more within his comfort zone. And while it's nice to step out of your comfort zone from time to time, there's a reason why he's good at what he does and why it's so well received. So I think I'm going to be pretty receptive to this. Maybe more so than I have been of like Damian and Dad Bat in the comics. And by the way, with Batman being a father in this interpretation, it sort of gives you that opportunity to get away with a Batman who's a little bit older, a Batfleck, if you will. Not saying we need to bring back
it won't be him though.
Ben Affleck, but you can have someone who is like that age and it's fine. Like you're not worried about they're going to age out of the role. Well, isn't that kind of the point? If this is the period of Batman's life we're picking up from, that's fine.
Yeah, that older, hardened Batman. All right, so and then 2 years, expected to release 2 years after Superman Legacy, we're going to get Supergirl, World of Tomorrow, World of Women of Tomorrow, excuse me. We'll explore a unique character version of Kara Zor-El, Kal's cousin. While Kal found a loving family on Earth, Kara floated through space in a destroyed fragment of Krypton, witnessing nothing but death and destruction. It is inspired by Tom King's take on the beloved character. It intends to show how different upbringings can give birth to very distinct heroes. So I don't know a hell of a lot about Supergirl that much outside of, I did see the Helen Slater one when I was a kid. I have not seen it in years. I remember Laura Vandervoot on Smallville. I enjoyed her performance of it. And I watched, I think, the first couple of seasons of the Supergirl show on CBS before it became officially part of the Arrowverse, and I kind of checked down it. Yes, I actually divorced that show, Tim. It's not often that I divorce from shows, but I have divorced from shows in the past.
What a misogynist you are!
I kind of am.
You can stop watching trash like The Walking Dead, but you give up on Supergirl. Jeez.
I know.
Which only plagued our lives for what, 4 or 5 seasons?
It's still going because Fear the Walking Dead is in its last season now too. They just keep coming out with more stuff.
I'm just saying, 11 years of that versus how many seasons of Supergirl?
The difference from Walking Dead when it first came out was that my daughter would walk in the room, and if she saw like a glimpse of Walking Dead, she would go running crying out. Now she watches it. So that's how long.
Yeah, that's how long it's been on. Yeah.
So
she was a tiny child when it started.
I know, and then she's all older. Anyway, so I don't know all that much about Supergirl, but this sounds like really interesting to me. Tim, what's your take on it? Since are you like the whole super family? Are you just a Superman?
I'm more of a Superman purist, if we're going to be honest. I
So you're a
accuse you of
Superman
misogyny.
misogynist, then? Okay.
Yes, I'm a Supermanist. Yeah. Look, I can't say I'm overly familiar with this Tom King take on Supergirl. It certainly sounds more interesting than probably any other take on Supergirl I've ever heard of, to be honest with you. I've never been thrilled with derivative characters, and that's what Supergirl has sort of always seemed like to me. Not to say that she has no inherent value at all, but I don't know. Like, she's sort of having a moment. She's had this semi-successful television series on the CW for some time. People are pretty well versed and familiar with the character, at least in name. So to get a radically different take on her might be interesting. It just sounds more interesting than a straightforward, hey, she's a hero trying to follow in her big cousin's footsteps or whatever. Like, that's so boring. Come on. So yeah, I mean, they could have something here. It definitely was not the type of thing. If you ask me what should be on this first slate of films under this new regime, I probably would not say, well, you got to start doing Supergirl movies right away. But I guess it's all part of the plan.
Okay. Scott, any thoughts on Supergirl?
I'd much rather have Power Girl, but
that's a good call.
I'm fine with Supergirl here. It's a little bit different. So, and they're building up both the Bat family and the Super family, which is a good way to go.
All right. So then the last of the 5 films announced, and that's not all that we got coming in terms of film and TV, which we'll get to in a second, is Swamp Thing. It's based on DC's most iconic horror character. We haven't been given a lot of information yet, but Safran has promised that the story will investigate the dark origins of the character. So fans should expect the DCU to draw inspiration from Alan Moore's beloved comic book run. Also, reports are coming out that James Mangold is in talks to direct.
Oh fuck.
So Scott, we'll start with you. Any thoughts on Swamp Thing, a character I know nothing about at all?
So I've read some of Alan Moore's Swamp Thing, and it was very dark, and that's what I like, that we're going off the beaten path of some of these characters, especially when we get to the television. And I think Swamp Thing, if done right, could be as he's known as the Green, could be a very fun character. And as we're seeing, we're not getting all black and white here with good guys and bad guys. We're getting shades of gray. Obviously, with the Authority, Swamp Thing, not always seen as a good guy. So, and especially what we talk about when we get to the television stuff. But I'm really excited to see what they do for this, because I know there was a TV show that they tried to do. I believe it started on the DC app, and when they shuttered that, they moved it to CW and killed it pretty quickly. But everyone was high on Swamp Thing, so I'm real interested into it.
All right, Tim.
Want to hear a dirty little secret? I kind of low-key love Swamp Thing. Having not read a lot of Swamp Thing comics beyond like that Moore stuff, which I really dig. I really like how he's, to Scott's point, not even necessarily like a superhero. He's just sort of a neutral thing that exists, and he's sort of the embodiment of you fuck around, you find out, right? When it comes to his environment, basically. And then you get into this whole, like, it, at its best, that character and that concept invites all these questions around identity and just your place in the universe, and then there's an interpretation that says he's an elemental, and he's, like Scott said, part of the green, which is itself part of the Parliament of Limbs, and it's all this cosmic bullshit, and I love it. It's such nonsense, and I absolutely love it. And I hope they go whole hog into all of that bullshit. Just complete nonsense, like fever dream, acid trip bullshit. Just go there with this character, because if you can't do it with Swamp Thing, who can you do it with?
All right, it sounds like fun. All right, so moving over to TV, we get Creature Commandos. It is going to be the first TV show released in this DCU, a 7-episode animated series based on the DC Comics team of the same name. They are a team that was put together by Amanda Waller and comprises of some of DC's most monstrous characters. James Gunn has written the script for all 7 episodes, which is already in production, and as he underlines, the new DC animated projects aim to feature voice cast members who can also play their characters in live action productions. This team looks really like, I'm trying to look at it, and I recognize Weasel, so I'm guessing Sean Gunn will be part of this, but I really don't recognize any of the other characters. Shocking, right? So I'm interested, though. This is kind of cool, and the whole concept about the being voice actors as well as live action is really, I mean, as long as they put that ironclad in those contracts, it's going to hold true. So, Tim, you know anything about Creature Commandos?
No, I'm pretty similar to you, Andy, and I don't think we're alone in that. This took a lot of people by surprise. I mean, to the extent that it seemed like there was a lot of speculation or just assumption that this was an original concept, that it wasn't even based on anything from the comics. It's certainly not anything I had heard of. And come to find out, shortly after the announcement, the creator of these characters, or at least this concept, I don't know how much it's going to be using his characters versus just a collection of characters. But anyway, the writer J.M. DeMatteis kind of raised his hand on Twitter and said, guys, I created this back in like the late 70s. So that was sort of funny. But JMD, that writer, responsible for some great stories in comics. You think of Kraven's Last Hunt, aka Fearful Symmetry, in the Spider-Man books. He was one of the principal authors of the rebooted post-crisis in the 80s Justice League International, which is actually where the Blue and Gold partnership was born. Some really funny, almost comics and superhero team as a sitcom was sort of the idea behind that series, and it worked to great effect. But I love J.M. DeMatteis as a writer. He's not a household name, not really well known to people like who aren't old comics fans like I am. But if you know the name, you probably love him. And I can't say that, again, I'm familiar with his writing or his creation of Creature Commandos, but all that is to say, if that is where this is coming from, it's got some good bones behind it, if nothing else. So, and it's an animated series, so that'll be fun.
Mm-hmm. Scott, you know anything about Creature Commandos or have any thoughts?
It'll be something I'll check out. The animated stuff, I think it's a good idea with like animated TV, video games, and everything is going in. But I think like you won't have to watch everything to get the full story. This will be like just background stuff if they do show up in live action, which is fine. It should be interesting, but it just seems like a Suicide Squad knockoff, if I'm being completely honest.
Mm-hmm. All right. Speaking of Suicide Squad, we have Waller. So
good. That was good.
Starring Viola Davis as Amanda Waller, series will serve as a direct follow-up to Peacemaker and feature characters from the previous DC series. That means that Peacemaker and Suicide Squad will still be canon in the DCU even after The Flash resets the multiverse. With the cancellation of the Doom Patrol series, the creator Jeremy Carver will join forces with Watchmen writer Crystal Henry to bring this series to life. So that means, unfortunately, we're not getting a Peacemaker season 2, but a lot of these characters, I mean, some show, what's her face showed up in Black Adam, right?
His wife, James Gunn's wife.
Yeah, James Gunn's wife showed up. Yeah, what's the character's name? I can't remember off the top of my head. So Scott, what are your thoughts on Waller, starring a now, as of today, EGOT winner?
I'm a little upset, but if this turns into Peacekeeper season 2, sort of like how that shitty
Peacekeeper season 1.
Wait, did I? Yeah.
Peacekeeper. I'm just messing with you.
Did I get that? Peacemaker.
What?
Peacemaker season 2. Sort of like the shitty how that Boba Fett series turned into Mando season 2.5. So we get that with Peacemaker, with Cena showing up. I think it should be good. Waller, I'm not gonna lie, she's a cunt. So I hope they bring that to her. They're setting her up in the comics for the DC side. She's gonna be the big bad guy at the end. They have this DC thing, but they had like a little 1-page thing where it's like a Peacemaker, another a Peacekeeper, which is like a girl version of Peacemaker, and like a bunch of other characters, and she's going to start hunting down the superheroes after the latest Dark Crisis. So I think this is going to be a big time for her. I know Waller's coming out obviously in a couple of years, but she was busting Batfleck's balls, and she's not one woman to mess with, so I'm interested to see what's going to happen with her.
Yeah, you don't mess with her. It's funny. She's such a great actor. She makes me hate her so much. This character, I just can't stand her. Oh my god! But it's like in a good way. It's not like I like, oh bullshit, I don't want to see this character on my screen. It's like, no, I hate you. Oh my god, you're so nasty, you biatch. Tim, what are your thoughts on the Waller TV show?
I kind of hope every episode is just 50 minutes of Amanda Waller eating steak and arguing with government officials. I like that character. I haven't fully embraced sort of what we've seen of her in film so far. Look, I love Viola Davis. I haven't been super taken with just this version of the character. I'm not saying Viola Davis has done a bad job by any means. I think she's worked with what she's been given, and it's been a little hit and miss for me. So it's hard not to hear this announcement and think, why couldn't this just be Peacemaker season 2? But I mean, there is something to work with here. It has potential. I hope I see a little bit more from this character now. And I guess this is an opportunity to do that. So, yeah, mixed feelings here. I hope it does not preclude the existence of more of John Cena's Peacemaker.
Yes, that would be a true crime.
A tragedy.
Right. It would. So then we move on to Booster Gold.
Yes.
A character that has been a fan favorite. It will stick close to the comic books and feature a loser who travels back in time and tries to become a superhero by using advanced technology as his power source. In the comic books, Booster Gold often teams up with Blue Beetle, which gives us hope for that character remaining in the DCU for the long run, too. All right, so we will start with Tim with this one. I've heard of Booster Gold. I think I'm trying to remember where this character may have shown up on something I've seen. I know maybe it's just
maybe like a Legends of Tomorrow or something.
I haven't watched that, but I think it's from the Injustice video game, because there's the whole storyline that goes with it. So I think that's where I know Booster Gold from. Not much know about it, but it's it's a very interesting concept for a superhero.
It is, yeah.
Yeah. So Tim, what are your hopes on this show?
Dan Jurgens' creation from the 80s. And he's a loser who comes back in time from the future with his advanced technology, and basically looks much more impressive in the past than I guess he is in his native timeline. But I probably first became acquainted with Booster Gold reading the Death of Superman trade paperback that I got that Christmas it came out, because Booster was one of the members of the then Justice League. Now, I'll grant you, this is a Justice League full of some real B and honestly C and D listers who got their shit pushed in pretty handily by Doomsday. But he certainly left an impression. I'll give you that, as did most of those characters who got their asses whipped. But I've always had a soft spot for Booster, I think, since then, because I just have fond memories of that era of DC and Superman. But yeah, he's had a long run in comics. He got a nice little almost main event push over the course of the weekly series 52 coming out of Infinite Crisis, which was great. Really, really great work done on the character there. But it's a concept that's so much fun that it almost writes itself. So I'm really, and that's without even getting into, again, his partnership with Blue Beetle, although it is the Ted Kord original, I guess. Well, not even original, but second Blue Beetle. Anyway, the more popular and well-known Blue Beetle, I guess we'll say, was his buddy in the comics. So it sort of is, are they going to just repurpose that relationship with Jaime Reyes, or is there a possibility we see a Ted Kord in James Gunn's DCU? I don't know. But really looking forward to this one just because it's a fun character, and I don't know how you can go wrong with Loser comes back in time to make himself look much cooler than he is.
Scott, what are your thoughts?
I didn't know much about Booster Gold until I started reading 52, and he is great in that. So I'm really excited for it. It's a fun take. It's going to be a slapstick comedy, 28-minute an episode of like Booster thinking he knows something that happens in the future and then fucking up. So I am great with this. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I saw a lot of people trying to put Chris.
Which Chris? Chris Pratt?
Yes, Chris Pratt is Booster Gold.
I was going to say, of all the Chris's, I could probably see Chris Pratt as Booster Gold the easiest.
But I don't know if he would want to do a TV show, even though he does do that one on Amazon. So maybe he can, but I think this will be a lot of fun, and especially if he's talking with his robot that he has. They always bounce off of each other very well. I'm blanking on the robot's name right now, but I see these last two, Andy, that we're going to talk about. These are my bread and butter right now. With it, so just kick it off. I'm ready. Tim, go take a piss or something.
Sure,
we're gonna be a little bit.
So,
I'll sit it out. Yeah,
I'm waiting for Scott to say something like, "In brightest day, in blackest night, no evil shall escape my sight. Let those who worship evil's might beware my power. Green Lantern's light."
Let's fucking go. I've been waiting for this for 12 years.
So, Lanterns, a series focused on the two most beloved Green Lanterns in DC Comics history, Hal Jordan and John Stewart. The series draws inspiration from detective stories like HBO's True Detective and will portray the Green Lanterns as space cops investigating a dark crime that takes place on Earth. This sounds really, really interesting. The only thing I know about the Green Lanterns is when you play in the Lego games, and you do play, they do have several lanterns in those games, so I have a little bit of familiarity there. But yeah, I'm on board with this. I actually do kind of like Green Lantern. I loved him from the Super Friends show. He was kind of like my favorite outside of Batman, and then I had a thing later on for Firestorm. But Green Lantern was always low key one of my favorites from that. And Scott, this is your guy. Somebody's not here to talk shit about him, so go ahead. Floor is yours.
As I look around my room right now and I look at the Green Lantern action figures, I feel with them comparing it to True Detective, hopefully True Detective Season 1, because Season 2 is ass, we get a great Hal Jordan and John Stewart. Already thinking Hal Jordan, Taylor Kitsch, Tim Riggins. That would just melt my mind because Riggins is my favorite character from Friday Night Lights. I even named my dog after him. John Stewart, I'm up in the air. I know they were talking about wanting to do some fantasy casting was common, but that was like 15 years ago, so I don't know if that holds up. But if they do this right here, with them saying that lanterns is going to be very important to this chapter in DC. I had this conversation. I let you guys know about it before. I had this conversation with one of the guys at the comic book store that the person they're hunting for in on Earth is going to be their big event, and this is going to be the start of their big event, and it's going to be Black Hand. Now, you might not know who Black Hand is. Oh, sorry, not Black Hand. My apologies,
Not
guys.
Black Hand. I thought you said.
Yeah, it is Black Hand. Sorry. Now, Black Hand in the Jeff Johns run, I believe they're going to go off the Jeff Johns run for this. He's real creepy. He just loves death. He kills his whole family because they were morticians. And he is just evil. And death basically becomes him pretty much. And he's the walking personification of death. When you see him in panels, you see like everything dying around him. And I think this is what's we're going to lead to with this Gods and Monsters. They're big, we had the Infinity Saga, whatever you want to call this. I guess we can call it Chapter 3. Chapter 3, the big event that DC is going to have is Blackest Night. Blackest Night is when the dead heroes come to life and start taking out the good guys. This is when Hawkman dies in issue 1 of Blackest Night. Mara dies. Aquaman's wife. So, if you want to kill off the lady that shits in Johnny Depp's bed, we can kill her off in the second one. Hey, I got court documents to prove it. If they do this, it's going to be, it'll break my brain if they do Blackest Night as their big bad, which in Blackest Night, Batman's dead because he had died in Final Crisis. And that, so who knows if they want to kill Batman for this and, bring him back some other way because, as I said, not Jeff Johns, Grant Morrison does some crazy shit. Batman went through time when he was killed in Final Crisis and set things up. Like I said, comics is weird. But with this, I would be watching this every day. I'll be posting shit online. I'll pimp my podcast, but I'll be pimping this a whole lot more to check out Lanterns. I'll be buying t-shirts, telling everyone, giving my HBO password away. HBO, if you're listening, I'm not going to do that, wink, wink. But I want this so bad. I want it to be successful. For you guys, I want you to read Jeff Johns' Lantern run. When DC did their Flashpoint thing, reset everything back, they didn't touch three series. One of them was this Green Lanterns run. It's so damn good. It has a beginning, middle, end, and he sets everything up, and that's what we're going to see with this. The big event is going to be Blackest Night. That's what I'm going with. It's not going to be some Infinite Crisis or anything. It's going to be Blackest Night, and this is what kickstarts it. And we're going to see the breadcrumbs that follow. When we start getting a high body count, you can come back and tell me if I'm not dead that I was right. And I'm just so excited for it, especially with them saying this is going to be our True Detective. And if it's the True Detective with McConaughey and Woody Harrelson, chef's kiss. Let's go.
All right. Well, I think
and if it's bad, I'll still lie to you and say it's fucking great and tell you.
Oh, this Mark.
I think Scott needs to go have a cigarette. Tim, any thoughts on Lanterns?
I guess if.
How do you follow that?
What?
Right?
I haven't even said anything yet. What? I guess I'll say if we start seeing, prominent characters dying left and right, sort of right out of the gate, I suppose that will be the tell, right? That they would be gearing up for a Blackest Night, because you can't really do a Blackest Night if nobody's dead yet, right? So I guess you could, but I don't know that it has the same sort of impact necessarily that you want. But if we start killing people, I'll be like, Scott might be onto something here. So I guess we'll see. With Green Lantern, I have a complex relationship with Green Lantern. We'll not get into it, but I would say all in all, it's another one that sort of I have a soft spot for at the end of the day. And I do think an ensemble approach is the way to go with this property. So you've got the entire Green Lantern Corps. We tried just sort of focusing on our quote unquote Green Lantern Hal Jordan in that movie. I'm not saying that's the reason that movie didn't work, but probably a good idea to go in a different direction if you're going to kick that hornet's nest again. Certainly, I hope it turns out a lot more promising than the movie. I like the idea of space cops investigating things within their jurisdiction and just sort of the politics and the hierarchy of their organization, so to speak. I want to see how that works, how it plays out. So yeah, I think this could be a lot of fun. I think it's the right approach. It sounds like it's using a good mix of characters, both very familiar to people, who have their favorites, among the Earthbound or Earth-based Green Lanterns, and within the larger cosmology as well. Getting all those cool aliens in there. Yeah, I think I'd be on board for that. Okay. So I don't know. Remains to be seen what they might be building to. What is going to come of this dark secret mystery, whatever they're investigating. Is it Blackest Night? Is it is it going to lead to a Sinestro Corps war? Is it something having to do with Parallax? Who knows? But any of those stories done right, I think can be very impressive. So yeah, I'm kind of low key into this one. I'm more into it than I'm admitting. I'll put it that way.
All right. So the final TV show currently in development for DC Studios is Paradise Lost, a political drama set in Themyscira, Wonder Woman's birthplace. Set years before Diana's birth, the series will explore the political disputes in Themyscira as different Amazons try to seize power for themselves. It is expected to serve as an origin story of Themyscira itself and reveal how the Amazons create an all-women society hidden from the rest of the world. Basically, a Game of Thrones-esque type show, and I'm here for it. I mean, look, if it's set so many years before Diana's birth, that Gal Gadot we know won't be there, and apparently it's not set in stone that she will not be returning as Wonder Woman. So
she's gone.
Is it set in clay?
She's gone.
It might be set in clay, but
that's a good joke, Tim. By the way, I get that.
Thank you. I was glad someone got that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Tim, any thoughts on Paradise Lost?
I guess between this and Green Lanterns, is that what we're calling Green Lantern?
It's Lanterns.
Lanterns. Sorry, I'm sorry.
Sans green, yes.
All right, but between the two of those, this is giving us that crucial element of world building that I mentioned earlier as being so lacking the first go around pre James Gunn, and I think it's going to be. How about this, Scott Shifflett? How about ancient Themyscira? Not so much Game of Thrones, but as the West Wing. What if it's
I'm in.
What if it's that kind of political thriller? I mean, they're all women, of course. You're not going to have these strong male leads like you have in the West Wing, but you can still do that. You can still do that type of show with the Amazons. And yeah, well, I wonder if there's going to be a tie-in between this and like maybe there's that story where the Guardians, like the little blue turd looking guys who look like little old men.
Yes,
didn't they try to hook up with the Amazons at one point, and the Amazons were like, ew. And it led to like a lot of shit. I don't
know, but that sounds like them, because if you read the Jeff Johns run, all of them are assholes.
And they've always been assholes. But that is an earlier, pre Jeff Johns story. But I want to say that happened at some point in the history of Themyscira, and it was like, no. And it led to not so great things happening later for both, mainly in the Green Lantern realm. But anyway, yeah, maybe there's an opportunity to do a tie-in there. This is a movie, not a series, correct?
No, this is a series.
Series.
This is a series. Okay.
Yep.
All right. Well, even better. Bring on, ancient Olympic women getting up to political backstabbing and at the same time inspiring you from time to time as well, because that's what The West Wing was at its best, right? Very inspirational kind of show. And yeah, let's do it.
All right, Scott.
Yeah, it should be interesting. I want to see how many years they go. I mean, if they decide to do one seat, if they want, they could shoehorn this into doing like 2 seasons, and then in the last season you see that Diana is born, and then like maybe or like you said, made or aged up. It depends on how they want to do like the gods and goddesses in DC, but since the chapter is called Gods and Monsters, it seems like we're going to get a pretty big frame of gods, which is interesting because Marvel's doing the same as in the 4th Thor movie that Tim loves so eloquently. We saw spoiler alert, Hercules
joins the fight.
Yes, Hercules played by the guy from Ted Lasso, who is amazing. I'm blanking on names. I'm horrible with names right now. But yeah, that's it should be interesting. If they do this, they need to decide from the jump how many seasons they're doing, so they don't Game of Thrones it or Lost it more specifically. So yeah, but this is pretty good. And as a DC fan, as we went through all the stuff tonight and ranted and raved, basically for me, it's a good time. And like I'm glad they finally have an idea instead of like, we're just gonna collide the superheroes together like a 8-year-old plays with his action figures. So I feel pretty good that there's a plan.
Yeah, it's with the TV shows, kind of like knowing going in how long it's going to go, so they have a clear like endpoint. So it's not like they don't leave you hanging or they overstay their welcome. I think will be very important. I think that's how a lot of TV shows should be doing it now, knowing how many seasons we're going to get, I think is really a bonus to the viewer, and it gives them, the creators, really, direction and knowing how much time they have to kind of tell their whole story and the arcs and all that. So I think that's very important, especially in this case. All right. So any final thoughts that you haven't mentioned, guys? Tim, anything you want to say? Because this is not all. I mean, this is just some. Of this. I mean, this is a 10-year plan. This is chapter 1. And he said they didn't announce everything that was happening in chapter 1. So Lord knows what else we're getting.
I think that just to follow up on your last point, gods and monsters, that's what we're calling this phase. So I know they're not using the terminology phase, but that's what this effectively is serving as, and that's the way that we're used to probably interpreting it. So that's what I'm going to say. I think it makes a hell of a lot of sense to start this way because it's gods and monsters. It's very zoomed out, right? It's very big picture in scope. And where you have recognizable characters like a Batman. Well, it's not a Dark Knight detective story. It's a Bat family. It's not a singular Green Lantern. It's not Hal Jordan. It's not John Stewart, Guy Gardner. It's the GL Corps. It's Lanterns. It's not Wonder Woman. In fact, it predates Wonder Woman. It's the Amazons. It's the Themyscira. So it's sort of, and with Swamp Thing, again, a character who is very elemental in nature and larger than life. All of these things make a lot of sense when you're just sort of introducing people into this world. Then you start to narrow your focus, right? Once you hooked them, once you get your hooks in people and you see what's really going to take off, what's gathering momentum, what are people interested in, we can start to blow that out and develop it more, and you know, you get probably a phase 2 that is more narrow in focus, right into like a phase 3 where you're doing like specific storylines, right? You can't from the jump do Infinity War. You can't jump right into Civil War. You know, you've got to take the steps to get there, and it seems like that's what they're doing through these building blocks. And again, with this big picture approach, if something isn't working so well, needs some retooling, or just, you know, is a real dud right out of the gate, you're not so committed to it that you can't change course. So this gives them some flexibility, and it's also creatively a way to bring the world into focus without overly committing to any one thing. I think it's the right way to go. I was kind of surprisingly sold by this presentation of this unveiling of the 10-year plan, right?
All right.
Surprised myself.
Scott, any final thoughts?
I just hope they don't fuck this up.
Look.
Well, I mean, look, like we've said so many times and earlier in many pods, James Gunn has never let us down. Even, you know, the Grinch of DC, you know, Sean Kidd, his heart is growing 3 sizes right now because he's hopeful with James Gunn. So, yeah, it's like, prove us wrong. You know, you're our guy until you do something to piss us off or something that misses. Like, and he's got to have a pretty big miss. If he has something that's kind of like, all right, that wasn't the best, but it definitely, you know, didn't hit the way we thought it was going to be, we'll give him the benefit of the doubt. You know, and it's interesting to see like who the directors are going to be, who are all the other writers, and the casting. You know, are they going to go unknowns? Are they going to go established names? How much of a mix it will be between the two? So there's a lot to come, and it's kind of an exciting time because
a lot of people to come too, potentially.
Yeah. I don't know how to take that, but okay.
Looking at Scott Shifflett.
He's talking about me. I knew exactly what he was talking about.
So, yeah, a lot of good stuff, and hopefully we'll be here to break a lot of it down in the future. And, guys, you know, thank you for dropping in. You know, it's been a while since you guys have been here in the basement.
I know, right?
I know. You know, I haven't done much with the place. Got to be honest. You know, it's not the same without you guys here on the regular. But we'll pop back in though to have some fun discussions. And of course, you know, we're always at Tim's place for the Treasures of the Lost Arks records because he's the one steering that ship. You know, and yeah, we're just gonna keep on plugging away, and hopefully we have opportunities to just talk about things when things like this happen. It's that's why we do this stuff, is so we can talk about it and kind of, you know, give each other information and give you information and give you our thoughts, and maybe, you know, something you may have been down on or didn't know anything about. Now you know a little bit about, and you have something to maybe look forward to. All right, cool. So guys, thank you once again for Scott Shifflett and Tim Capel. I am Andy Atherton. This has been Pop Goes to the Couch. Hopefully we'll see you back sooner than later, and keep an eye out for the next episode of Traders of the Lost Arks, featuring the three of us and Sean Kidd, coming to your very earbuds soon. All right, guys, take care. Enjoy the movies.